Hello and welcome to Eat Drink Rhode Island, the show. My name is David Dadakian, and my guest today is Senator Jack Reed, our senior senator from the state of Rhode Island. We're going to talk today about the Expanding Access to Local Foods Act, the EAT Local Foods Act. And in brief, it would create a permanent grant program for state and tribal governments to procure local foods for distribution to nearby feeding programs. And Senator Reed will expound on that a bit for us, and we'll discuss some of the nitty gritty of the act and how this is going to really. It sounds like a really fantastic act. I mean, from my perspective, it's kind of a no brainer, a very easy win for folks. But obviously, in a political climate, we've got to work through it. So, Senator Reid, why don't you give us your thoughts on the act, and tell us a little bit more about it and why you support it.
Well, David, first, let me thank you for your incredible enthusiasm, and you're a catalyst to so much that's happening here in the state when it comes to local farming, restaurants, et cetera. So you're the indispensable person in many respects.
Thank you.
Oh, no, it's easy, as I say about my role in Washington, it's easy when it's true to say these things. So, thanks. What happened is that during the pandemic, the Department of Agriculture came up with a temporary program that would fund states and tribal entities to provide resources to local farmers to produce food that then would be transferred to the local safety net distribution system, so people who are really in need could have food. It worked well, and it's actually necessary. One of the things I discovered in the pandemic is that we only produce about 2% of the food we eat, and
Right.
there's so many consequences now. We're looking across the country at wildfires in California, massive electrical disruptions in Texas because of hurricanes. We're facing a more significant challenge environmentally. And if we don't have local resources, we could find ourselves cut off from the supply line. So this is so good in so many different ways. It helps local farmers. It helps people who are, in many cases, food challenged. And it's going to be something that's going to, I think, sort of innovate our farming locally so that they'll be more competitive commercially. And of course, ultimately, it's going to help people who need food. There's nothing better in terms of healthcare than good food. I mean, we spend a lot of money on healthcare. If you're not eating well, you're going to be spending a lot of money or other people's money at the hospital. So that's not it.
To hear that said, I think people forget that sometimes. I think the healthcare aspect of it sometimes disappears in the conversation about food. Obviously, food insecurity is extraordinarily important, but there's a huge health aspect to that.
Well, it's particularly true with children. That's why we've taken steps in schools to try to move to free lunch for all, even supper meals and breakfast meals. I mean, just think back. If you're hungry, you're not going to be sitting there paying attention to the teacher. You're just going to be thinking about getting something to eat. And the other thing, frankly, and this is for particular case in those households that are economically challenged, access to good fresh food difficult, access even to supermarkets difficult. You really end up going to the closest provider, which is sometimes the Cumberland Farms, the 7-Eleven, and the nutritious food there is more limited than in supermarkets and in farm stands. So, of
course, yeah, no, absolutely true. So yes, this grew out of the LFPA, as you mentioned, the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program. I have to always look down because the government loves their acronyms. I want to make sure I have that right. Which I think anyone, thinking back through the pandemic, I think anyone who went through it, anyone who's not even related to the food system, remembers the supply chain issues and remembers how difficult it was to get certain things. And so, to see this as a way to sort of, help that out and be the fix for it before it happens next time. Hopefully, it never happens next time, but before it happens again as a safety measure is huge. But also, let's talk about how it supports the local economy, because I think that's extremely important. I think it was a great boost. Obviously during the pandemic, we needed it to boost small local businesses because of everything that was going on. But now that we're out of that and, we're looking at this from that perspective, how do you feel this boosts the local economy?
Well, I think it's a tremendous boost to the local economy. And thank you. You joined us a few days ago for a tour of Wright's Dairy Farm and also the Goodwin Brothers Farm Stand. And here you have classic small business, local Rhode Islanders, hiring local Rhode Islanders. And to the extent that their market grows, the demand for their product grows, they grow. And we're seeing this. And, you know, it is absolutely straightforward that this is going to help these farmers, first of all, get established because they have a market, and then second, grow because they have, we hope, a bigger and bigger market. And it employs local people. And frankly, visiting these two facilities, I'm just very impressed about the sophisticated technologies they're incorporating, the how they're getting more yield from their land they did in the past, how they're very sensitive to the environment so that they're making an environmental contribution too. Uh, this is win-win-win, and you have to encourage it.
Absolutely true. So let's, I wouldn't normally go here with food, but I think because I've got you, and because you're, so important on defense, I think we should mention, for people to realize, strengthening your local food chain and getting your food locally is also a helpful, in case of any sort of problem, with international affairs and things of that nature. It's a good means for public defense as well.
Well, no, it's absolutely essential. I mean, Napoleon said it best: an army moves on its stomach.
Right. Yeah.
And yes, and so as a result, we do have to have supplies. And we do have to, not only the United States, but some of our allies, we have to make sure that they have the ability to sustain their people if they're engaged. This is a situation in Ukraine. The Russians are deliberately trying to destroy the power system so they can destroy all their economy.
Right.
They're trying to interfere with the shipment of grain and wheat, and that had worldwide effects. In the first days of that war, the impact in Lebanon, the Mideast, and Africa was profound because most of the Ukrainian grains were going there. So you're seeing a worldwide phenomenon. So this we have to be prepared to have a hopefully sustainable agricultural economy all across the United States. The other factor too is with climate change.
Yeah.
My sense is that the traditional Kansas farm that used to have 10,000 acres under production and cycle because of rain, lack of it, because of other natural phenomena, because of water problems, irrigation, it's not 10,000 acres anymore. It's less than that. And it's not 3 crops a year. It could be 2 crops a year. And you think it's bad here, go overseas. I was with the King of Jordan a few years ago, and he was telling me how their rainfall line is moving north because of climate change, and they're losing arable land constantly.
Oh,
And that creates, first of all, a lack of food, and second,
right.
a lot of young people that don't have a job, and that's not a good formula in
Yeah.
countries
Yeah.
with unstable politics.
Absolutely
So
true. That's an excellent point.
so this has worldwide implications. This is not just the local farm stand. This we have to build up resilience and for many phenomena, natural phenomena, climate change, man-made phenomena. Some of the Ukraine is an example of that.
Mhm.
So
So let's also, we haven't touched on yet I think one of the nicer props to the program is it works with tribal communities as well. I
yes,
think to see that and to see especially things that are more indigenous here and that are
hmm
welcomed in the crop world that we don't normally see.
right.
Talk about that a little bit. How do you think that helps?
Well, first of all, our tribal economies can't be ignored. And this is, I think, a very good way to support those economies. It's not entirely the case, but many times tribal communities are located in rural areas that are very much adaptable to agriculture.
Yeah.
And if they have the resources to begin the production cycle and they have the demand, then you're looking at small business innovation and development. And, it's something I think the tribal governments throughout the United States and here have a real respect and regard for the land and for the environment, and also have experience in farming in many cases.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is tapping into a natural resource, the tribes themselves, and given the chance, I think they'll do remarkably well in developing their economy in their tribal areas.
All right, so let's get into the details of the bill. So as I mentioned, it came out of the LFPA. Who is it that you're working with, and how did you get involved?
Well, I mean, part of this was, first of all, I have a very, very bright staff, and
True.
they do good work, and I take credit for it. So I will admit that.
It's a smart move, though. That's how it should work.
But the other thing is, we were really impressed about the impact as we went around Rhode Island, particularly of the LFPA, the temporary program. And we said to ourselves, this should be permanent. This is really good. It's cost effective. It helps the economy. It deals with a whole range of issues, some of which are getting worse, not better.
Yeah.
So that was the impetus to do this. And then we've reached out. We've tried to get help from the Agricultural Committee. And fortunately, a very dear friend, Debbie Stabenow, was chairwoman of the committee. Debbie's from Michigan. She's a terrifically talented lady, and she's been helping us directly incorporate aspects of our legislation, in fact, most of our legislation in one form or another, into the pending farm reauthorization bill, the agriculture bill. Now, we have a situation where we had a temporary extension in 2023, and that runs out for most of the programs like SNAP at the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th. So we have to do at least a temporary fix just to keep things going. And then the commodity programs that support large farms and commodity programs, that would expire in December.
Wow.
So we have a lot of pressure to get, and we'd like to have a 5-year reauthorization, not just a year to year to year. But Debbie has helped us include within the Senate bill the local food purchase assistance cooperation agreement program. That's a lot of words.
Yeah, it's okay.
Make it permanent. It's going to make it permanent.
Yeah.
Also, we're protecting SNAP because you've got to empower people of limited income to be able to buy food, and that again, it just doesn't help them. It helps our local farmers too. And then we're looking to set a minimum annual payment for the conservation stewardship program. Again, we can do a lot of good things with conservation, and if we don't, we're seeing again these climate effects, and the flooding last February or so was really startling to me. I was in communities that were homes gutted with water coming in, and roads piping that we put in maybe in the 60s or 70s for a 100-year storm. The 100-year storms are now every years, and so we have to start being more sensitive to conservation. So that's one other aspect, and it dovetails into doing that. But I think that the heart of it is the extending that program permanently, and that would do a world of good, I believe.
So explain to the average person out there, what's the chain? Is it simply just there's this pool of money? How do farms access that, and then where does it go from there?
Well, I mean, we have a model. We did it
right.
Creatively and spontaneously during the COVID pandemic. Technically, the money would go to the state, but then it would be put in our case, I presume DEM, but I'm not a state official.
Of course.
And then the allocation would be, and the distribution would be similar to what was done during COVID to the farmers. But here's the opportunity now. If we can get this passed, and one of the advantages we have most times, it's a small state. so the agriculture community and the state officials can sit down together and work out, I think, a very good plan to get this money out where it should be. We're not, it's not a huge state where you've got a lot of regional
Yeah.
combinations, et cetera. We've got a vigorous farm community that can sit down across the table with the state and say, well, here's what we recommend. And the state, well, here's what we do based on federal guidelines, et cetera. But, that's why I think it was successful in the first place. Because we were in the COVID when, we were in this thing together and we were talking and we were being improvising and going the extra mile. And if we can do that with this program, we'll be in great shape.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is the beauty of it here. I mean, we can, any one of us in this community can sit at the computer or pick up a phone and, I can get Jesse Rye at Farm Fresh or Margaret DeVos at that side in a matter of seconds. And we all know each other and want to communicate. And so I think you're right. Being the small state that we are, it does help. So, all right. So let's talk about getting this passed. What can your constituents do? What can we do to see this get passed? And what do you think is the timeline here?
Well, I think the timeline is because of the pending deadlines on the authorization, the temporary authorization. I think there'll be a move for a extension of the existing bills at least till December 31st. So that's step one. But I think that's going to happen simply because there's too many vested interests. You can't stop the whole Department of Agriculture. Then in between now and December 31st, there'll be serious efforts to pass the 5-year farm bill. And that's where our provisions would be located. So I think basically my colleagues in Rhode Island, Senator Whitehouse and Congressman Magaziner, Congressman Amo are terribly supportive. They understand it. They're out there. They see this. They want it to help. But if you have contacts across the country, particularly in Republican states, and I must tell you what is alarming is that the House Agriculture Committee approved a bill in May that would cut SNAP, cut conservation programs. They will probably bring it in the next few weeks to the floor of the House, and it could pass. And so they're already setting up a dynamic where instead of investing in programs like SNAP and programs like the one I'm proposing, they're cutting. I don't think they'll be cutting the big commodity programs because that's their base, but programs that help people who are economically challenged eat, or they're not that concerned.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's an excellent point. I think if you're watching this and you're not in Rhode Island, please reach out to your senator and representative and tell them to support this. I mean, I try to remain optimistic. I have seen what's going on with the House and the Farm Bill, and it's not great by any means. I think people should realize when you use that catch-all Farm Bill term, which is often used to grab it all, that SNAP is such a huge part of that, and SNAP is vital to so many people across the country. So yeah, if you can certainly, I'm sure, Congressman Magaziner and Congressman Amo would welcome your input as well. But as you said, they're good supporters.
Yeah.
As a Senator Whitehouse, I know, they're all very thoughtful about, food insecurity is, it's tragic. It's one of those things that, we sit here and think of ourselves as the best country in the world in some ways. And to have a large population that's hungry is really sad.
Let me offer a very, I think, interesting example of how this impacts, and we've talked about this a little bit before. The military today has a significant recruiting problem.
Yeah.
Get young men and women in the military. The two major reasons are failure for these young recruits to pass a rather simple test, intelligence test, if you will, and obesity. Now, I think we have to look at our schools and say we have to do a better job because we're turning out graduates that are the Army or the Navy or the Air Force, et cetera, can't accept. But obesity, that goes back to some things we talked before. If you don't have good, nourishing food, what do you eat? Potato chips? Yes. If you have to shop at the local, gas station / convenience store, what are you buying? Junk in many cases. I mean, I shop there too, so I don't want to be.
Yeah, we all do, but yeah, but,
And
but it's not
I
our
eat the
primary
food too,
source.
so I'm not holier than that. I don't,
Right.
I'm not, unlike Cory Booker, I'm not a vegan. Maybe I should be, but I'm
Oh,
not.
bless him for
Uh,
what he does. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
that's his thing, not my thing either. Right?
okay.
But no, we all
No,
do. Yeah, but we also, also
but
get good sources of food too.
but the point is, by not investing in good, wholesome food like this in a very efficient way, the consequences are profound. We have a generation of young people who are significantly overweight, and okay, they can't get in the military, all right. But guess what? The likelihood of developing medical conditions because of obesity are high.
Yeah.
And where do they go? They go into the healthcare system. That's expensive. We're all saying, my God, we've got to control healthcare for it. It starts with some basics, and one is, it would save my mother-in-law 3 square meals a day, and that, and then getting access to a good education and stand back. This country's moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely true. No, very true. But yeah, it starts with health. I mean, I think that's a great way to think about it,
Yeah.
and being able to get more food into communities, real food, real grown food, and not ultra processed food is key. So to see this act is fantastic. Um, I think we've touched on a wide range of things there. Is there anything you think we missed, or anything you want to add?
No, David, I just I want to thank you again for what you're doing. You're kind of a catalyst for so many good things. Thank you. And I try to get around to the farms in Rhode Island, and also not, we understand too, we haven't touched on directly, but we have a great aquaculture system
Oh
in the
yeah.
state. And we're seeing great harvesting of oysters and clams and things like that. And it's also fueling our restaurant industry. People are coming here because frankly, we have the best restaurants in America. But also, when you can get your oysters 2 minutes from where they were
Right.
hatched or brought in, they're coming. And so this helps our economy, not just feeding people locally, but also, driving out sales in the state and resources for the state. So I think we have to do more with what we have. We have to expand opportunities for aquaculture and for traditional agriculture, I guess. Um, and we're looking at ways to do that. One of the things I did early on in my career is had a grant program at University of Rhode Island for aquaculture.
Right.
And a lot of these startup aquaculture enterprises benefited from that loan assistance program, et cetera. And then our university too, URI, Roger Williams, are deeply engaged in Salve, and all of them really
Yeah.
deeply engaged in science and aquaculture. We are going to be, I think, the center for the blue economy. We've got, over the next several years, NOAA's Atlantic headquarters coming to Newport, and they engage in some of the science behind aquaculture. We've got the University of Rhode Island Bay campus. We've got the URI and Pari Rasso are building together a hatchery in Matunic, which is going to be terrific.
Oh, fantastic! Absolutely fantastic.
Well, and we're actually trying to get ahead of the game because, again, we go back to environmental changes. As the water temperature changes, certain species blossom, certain species decline. But there in that hatchery, they can do the research to say what is the best species that we should be planting. So we'll be better informed. So we have to, connect all these pieces. And one of the things I try to do is look at every federal program and see how we can get it into Rhode Island, get it focused. And then the key, I think, advantage we have is the private individuals like yourself and many others who really can cut through a lot of the paperwork and obstacles, et cetera, and get around the table and get things done. That's the key.
No, thank you, and you've been fantastic for the state. So thank you for that as well, and thank you for just making it all about food. I mean, that's I don't have to do that at this time. You did.
Well, Napoleon, as I said it best. An army moves on Sunday. I'm the
Yep.
chairman of the Armed Services Committee. We better have food.
Right.
The other thing that that Napoleon said, which is memorable, and it's not really apropos to this conversation, is that do not blame someone because of malice when incompetence might be equally true. So sometimes we have to be just smarter, and that's what I like about what you've been doing, what your colleagues have been doing. Is you've been trying to get really thoughtful approaches to these things. The universities are doing that.
Yeah.
We're gonna move out not just with money from the Fed. It's going to be thoughtful, wise decisions that carry us forward.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much. Yep. Well, thank you for your time this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, David.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Jack Reed. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.